Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Ian Fegley. I'm the Director of Outreach and Engagement here at the Forum for Youth Investment in Washington, D.C. The Forum was founded in 1998 with the tagline of moving ideas to impact, because we help leaders think differently about what it takes to manage and sustain change, whether they're in the process of planning and partnering for impact, improving and aligning policies, or strengthening practices and programs. Today's session was planned to be part of our Ready by 21 national meeting. Similar to most in-person meetings, it of course was canceled in April, and so we really wanted to bring the rich and insightful comment that so many of our faculty have to you. So we're very excited about today's topic of system building beyond the bell, and we have a wealth of great speakers. Before I get started on introducing them, wanted to tell you a little bit about Zoom. Hopefully you're all overly familiar with Zoom by this point, but just wanted to introduce you to a few capacities of Zoom that we'll be using today. First of all, you'll all be asked to use the annotate feature so you can actually participate and join in the conversation with your keyboard and your mouse. So the annotate feature is at the top of the screen under view options. So if you right click on that little triangle and hit view options, annotate is one of the options there, and you'll have a range of either writing text or adding emojis or other things to a page of content. That is the first option. Then the second option is under the lower left side of the screen. There's audio settings. We are going to allow you, if you want to ask questions verbally. I will give you the right to unmute, but if you actually are trying to unmute, you'll need to click on that microphone button in the left corner. There are three options that we have beyond annotate for you to participate in today's session. The first being raising and lowering your hands. As time permits, we'll be able to let people ask questions during the session. You can submit a question using the Q&A feature. I believe that's available in that upper box on your Zoom platform. There's also the chat feature. You can chat to either all panelists. If you just want to send us a note, if you're having audio trouble or have a specific question, or you can write to where all attendees and everyone on the session will be able to see. If you have a comment or want to add a resource that you think people will benefit from, you're welcome to use that feature. So a few more logistical items. This webinar is being recorded. I will work on creating a landing page, and we've been really doing interesting things with resources and with the recordings afterwards. We also create interactive transcripts, and we'll be able to share all that with you sometime mid next week. All attendees will be in listen only mode, except for if they raise their hand, I will unmute them individually. So if you need anything, feel free to communicate directly with us via the chat feature. So we have excellent group of faculty today who I will introduce in just a second. There'll be a brief welcome and check-in on how you're all doing, then an overview of systems building, and then really kind of focusing on you and how this work is going to impact you and what you can take out of it going forward. So a little bit about our presenters today. First, Amy Anderson is Associate Director of Experiential Learning with the Opportunity Project. Amy is a Tulsa native, and she engages schools and community partners in providing high-quality expanded learning opportunities to middle schoolers through a program called After Op, which we'll be looking at some of the web resources shortly. Amy has served in roles in both program and research in the nonprofit and academic sectors. She's an advocate for her community and especially for its youngest members. Her passion for building meaningful connections between service providers and families fuels her work at the Op. Hazi Hiriart is Associate Director of Social and Emotional Well-Being at the Opportunity Project. Hazi believes in empowering individuals with the knowledge and tools they need to improve their quality of life and interactions with others. Hazi is from Mexico and holds degrees in international relations, global business, and soon educational psychology. She is passionate about disrupting inequity through bold innovation, forward-thinking advocacy, and open collaboration. Next, we have Fausto Lopez, who is a content area expert at the American Institutes for Research. Fausto is a Spanish-speaking senior technical assistant consultant working on school climate, social and emotional learning, and after-school and expanded learning initiatives at AIR. He provides technical assistance, training, and professional development to diverse audiences in the education and out-of-school time sectors. Lopez works with new and emerging after-school systems to design resources and tools that support programs in the development, implementation, and applied evaluation of program offerings. Also, we have Debbie Medley, who's Director of Expanded Learning with Tulsa Public Schools. Debbie works directly with the Opportunity Project to advance the alignment of school day and out-of-school time practices. In addition to spending time with her 3 children, her favorite pastime is now spending time and spoiling her grandson. So it's now my pleasure to turn it over to Fausto.
Thank you, Ian. Really quickly, hi, good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, depending on where we find you this in my afternoon coming from Chicago. Next slide, please. Just really quickly wanted to kind of ground us in Beyond the Bell. I cannot click over, Ian. Oh, one back. All right, Beyond the Bell, really just we're going to talk through and we're going to share some of the tools that come out of the Beyond the Bell toolkit. Again, I'm going to go ahead and maybe ask folks let's see real quick, let's open up this annotate option here for those. Let's see if you guys can have it. And maybe give me a stamp, maybe a heart if you have ever worked with Beyond the Bell. Perfect. And just quickly, again, Beyond the Bell, it's our toolkit for out-of-school time, specifically designed around for the out-of-school time sector. Different tools. We're going to kind of think through some of them and share some of them, and we're going to talk about the application within the work at the Opportunity Project. So go ahead and transition over to Hasi.
Thank you, Fausto. So the Opportunity Project is Tulsa's citywide intermediary for out-of-school time programs. And this is just a little tidbit of our mission, how we're dedicated to connect youth to the world of opportunity. And we do this by linking schools, programs, community agencies, the private sector, volunteers, local youth, and families, really to improve the quality, access, and delivery of expanding learning opportunities. And we'll talk more about it here in a little bit as well. We can move forward to the next slide, please. And to start us off, really, one of the things that we have adopted system-wide is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learnings, or CASELs, mostly known as CASEL, 3 signature practices. And when we first introduced social and emotional learning to our network, we got a very positive response, but the questions that immediately followed were, what does SEL look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? What do I need to implement this in my space of learning? And we find that intentionally implementing welcoming rituals, engaging practices, and optimistic closures really help us foster that positive learning environment for students and adults. And so in the next slide, you'll see another tool that we use from Yale University Center for Emotional Intelligence. They have what they call anchors of emotional intelligence, and we will be using the mood meter today to check in with ourselves first and reflect on how we're feeling. It's really important to acknowledge the times that we're currently living in, not only with a pandemic, but acknowledging that it's a time of hardship, a lot of unrest, protests, and hopefully potential for change. But it's critical to consider just the many stressors that impact us all, and just honor and validate those feelings. So to start us off, I'm going to ask you all to take a minute to check in with yourself, and if you're able to have the annotate option, if you click on the next slide, we'll be able to see the words hopefully a little bit bigger. Based on how much energy you're feeling and the level of pleasantness, You can either share your words in the chat or share with the annotate option with a sticker where you are at in the mood meter. We're starting to see some pop up. And also, this is a really great tool that we use really in every single meeting that we have. We like to model it for our partners and for ourselves. And it's really helpful as facilitator to know, not just to acknowledge and validate feelings, but also to decide whether it's important to shift an activity or maybe take some time to maybe facilitate a regulation strategy to make sure that we're creating the most effective environment for learning. So thank you for those that you're able to share. I know some of you are having trouble with the annotate option, but thank you for sharing it in the chat. And I know when I personally started using the mood meter, I quickly realized how I didn't take the time to ask myself how I was feeling. So it's a great tool for self-awareness as well. And another reason why we really like the mood meter is because it's really easy to make it fun and change it based on the group that you're working with. If you're working with younger students, it might be too sophisticated to try to get them to use a specific word, but even just explaining the concept of this and focusing maybe on color, or there's a lot of fun ways to engage. I know Fausto has used really silly ones, maybe with like pictures of a cat, or I know he has a SpongeBob SquarePants one that he's willing to share. And so you can make this a fun activity, but for those that are older, we really try to promote the expansion of emotion vocabulary, and so we really encourage you to be specific and nuanced on how you're feeling. So thank you all for sharing. I know some of you are feeling tired, and we acknowledge that. We really, really thank you for joining us today, despite how you're feeling. So let's move on to our topic of systems building. Our journey here in Tulsa began almost 3 years ago when the Opportunity Project was launched as the city's out-of-school time intermediary. And before then, we didn't really have a coherent, firmly established system for promoting and regulating OST activities and programs. For the most part, the way that our landscape was, it was more like a patchwork of independent efforts, sometimes operating in silos, just cobbled together by individual organizations or maybe some neighborhoods or some schools, but really there was no coordinating effort at all. And so as an OSTI, we set up to help tackle inconsistencies, inefficiencies, and really missed opportunities to serve more students and to increase the quality of our programming in places where OSD was not really coordinating. So you can click on the next slide. This is something that we used a lot to explain what an OSTI was, because when we first started off, many people were not familiar with the concept. And so we spent a lot of time trying to explain our role, our function, and really trying to connect with the community to assess the needs and where we could fill in those gaps. So in summary, we help develop program models to reach and engage more kids in becoming their best selves and have equal opportunities for their future success. We help establish standards, data systems that are launched citywide, and really help drive that high quality and really accountability to improve outcomes for students. So as you can see, a system is, what an OST intermediate does is connecting a complex network of stakeholders, schools, practitioners, frontline programs, funders, and we're able to provide technical assistance and other supports to providers. We highlight the need to connect practices to improve student learning and really just create a framework that includes all the necessary components in this complex endeavor. So there's a lot of moving parts to take into consideration, and we can move into the next slide. Another thing that we regularly need to do is elevate the importance of after-school activities and raise the awareness of the benefits of OST. And this is one example of the public awareness campaign that we launched, asking prominent Tulsans to share their personal experiences with after-school programs and their impact in their lives. And here we shared Joy Harjo. She's an award-winning poet and the first Native American U.S. poet laureate. She was gracious enough to participate in our campaign, and we had billboards, we had ads in bus shelters with the quotes that they shared. I know the font is somewhat small, so you might not be able to read what she shared, but I will read it for you. She said that art transformed her life by allowing her to express herself, to express the unthinkable and the unknowable. All of us, especially kids, need outlets to express ourselves and connect with the community. So that's just a quick snippet of the public campaign that we did. You can click on the next slide. Great. So at the Opportunity Project, we have structured ourselves based on developmental ages. We work with our city's largest district, Tulsa Public Schools, community-based organizations, city leaders, funders, policymakers, and others to expand experiential learning opportunities and integrate SEL in school and out of school. And that is what we call our Relate 918 initiative. And in middle school, we offer after-school campuses of activity, implementing and personalizing our model to meet the needs of each school. We're also hopeful to be able to launch a high school strategy in the near future. But besides our efforts in elementary and middle school, we also offer citywide systems, including CQI efforts, many PD opportunities and positive youth development, training the trainer models with our YCURT work, equity training, quality coaching, of course SEL, and our citywide data system also helps us with studying and analyzing enrollment and attendance efforts, and that really informs our planning and decision making. I will hand it off to Amy now to share about our partners.
Thank you, Hasi. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about our partners because, like Hasi said, it's a very complex system of a lot of different stakeholders. So, of course, we have our community-based organizations, people like Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, and then local community-based organizations that have been serving youth and schools for oftentimes quite a long time. And then we also have individuals who we partner with who are passionate about a subject and want to give back to the community. So we support them with trainings and a lot of TA support with curriculum design and helping them be successful. so that they can just kind of take whatever they're passionate about and go into the school and be passionate with the kids and teach them what it is. And then we also work with in-school teachers as well. So these are just teachers during the school day who also have a passion maybe outside of their content area that they want to share with youth. So we help them, and of course they have quite a lot of training, but we give them the additional, kind of whole child approach if they're not familiar with a lot of that, a lot of the social emotional learning, and some specific other things about connecting to in-school learning and so forth. And we also connect with school sites, of course. So we are the liaison between our partners, be them individuals or community-based organizations, and the school sites that we work with within the district. So we have meetings with administration, and we make sure that the school is supported enough to offer these expanded learning opportunities for youth, and that there's communication happening between the organizations or the individuals who are offering the clubs typically, and the school sites, so that it doesn't feel disjointed, so that it doesn't feel like, sometimes the expanded learning field has felt a little more of a stepchild, I would say, to the school. And in fact, I will quote Fausto, who came to us once, maybe last year, and I love using this. It feels like it used to kind of be a prevention strategy, and now we're turning it into an intentional strategy. So it went from prevention to intention. So thank you, Fausto, for that. I use it all the time. And then, of course, also a big partner of ours is our school district, Tulsa Public Schools, which, as Hasi said, is the largest urban school district in Tulsa. There are nearly 40,000 students in the K-12 district, and quite a lot of schools as well. So these are our partners, and I will say that when, because we're talking about systems building, and we're lucky enough to have Fausto here and his work with AIR and the Beyond the Bell tools, we're able to, within each of these partner levels, really give them individualized support, including those Beyond the Bell tools. So he'll talk a little bit about it, but there are 96 tools, and we're able to take them. Some of them are more appropriate for school district folks, while others really can help individuals who don't have that capacity necessarily when we first meet with them, to really think through and strategize and plan their program. We also are just launching the Learning Partner Network, which I have kind of a graphic right here, and we can send that out to folks as well. And so this also shows kind of all of these partners, what different supports we can give to them. And so I also want to include Debbie Medley, who is the Director of Expanded Learning for Tulsa Public Schools, to share just a little bit about, as representing the school district, a little bit about how we have worked together with systems building as well.
Yes, thank you, Amy. I am so excited to be here today. This is probably, anyone who comes in contact with me knows this is one of my most favorite subjects, is our partnership with the Opportunity Project. I have actually, Thursday will be celebrating my 18-year anniversary with the district, and have always worked in the out of school time field within my role. And as I think Amy or Hasi had said earlier, that about it being not very coordinated, and even 16 years into my job, it was still not very coordinated. Our district is comprised of our programs that we operate through our district. We also have community partners, 21st century programs, licensed programs, and then all the things that Amy has mentioned. And so you can imagine when we're not talking to each other, it is just great programming happening, but just not very coordinated, and we could just better utilize our resources. And I would say that that has been, so I say that I love all of our work together, but it hasn't always been easy, has it, Amy? I mean, just no, systems building is not easy work, but it actually is. It has really been interesting to dig in together. again, being able to use the tools from Beyond the Bell. We've seen our partners really be able to change how they are doing some of their programming, whether it's through their hiring practices or through lesson plans or communicating with individual schools. It has been really helpful. Was there something else in particular in that? Okay.
No, I think that's great. We'll kind of move through, and feel free to just jump in over the next couple of slides, Debbie. Ian, if we can move to the next slide, please. So one of the things that we did, just to give an example, is there is a tool about kind of connecting to in-school learning that we were using. So one of the things that we do to support our partners, and kind of a standard that we hold, is that we really believe in the whole child approach. So including social and emotional skill building into the program, with at least a minimum of CASEL's 3 signature practices. So that's the warm welcome, the engaging activity, and the optimistic closure. And so we also like to connect our experiential opportunities to in-school learning, so that youth can recognize academics as relevant to their passions, outside of the classroom. So an example for that is we have a chef club. We have a local chef who comes into a couple of schools a few times a week and teaches cooking to our kids. And not only does she implement the 3 signature practices when she leads her clubs, but she also includes, specific call outs for social and emotional learning. For example, I would say self-management is a big one in the kitchen, especially when you're working with things that are hot, things that are sharp, and of course, teamwork when you're working with a lot of people. But then she also connects to in-school learning. So chemistry and math are perfect examples of skills, and that they're going to learn in the academic setting that translate over to their passions. So the hope is that they see relevance in their academic learning because of these really high quality expanded learning opportunities. And then finally, we're explicit about the connection, especially in our older grades, between what they're doing in their clubs and career and future goals. So that is to say that that's a lot of stuff to pack into your curriculum when you're trying to teach them how to make, a pizza or something at their house. So we created, using one of these Beyond the Bell tools, we kind of added our own flair and the things that we need and that we expect from our partners. And so we've created our own kind of pacing guide template to help them think through those things, so that each day or each week they're offering these clubs, they're making sure they're hitting all of those marks. And you can go to the next slide. So that's just an example of one way that we used a tool and kind of reformatted it for our own use. So this is Debbie, I would love for you to speak to the out of school time standards. So these are 2 kind of larger efforts that we have been working on for quite a long time with the school district. So one of them is out of school time standards. So they're community-wide metrics for Tulsa, Oklahoma. And this is a booklet that we are going to launch this summer. And we've been working very, very closely with Debbie and her team and other folks from the district on taking what they believe, what we believe, what research says, and really putting everything together in an easy to understand format for partners. And then I'll speak a little bit to the data system, which we've named TIDLE. It's Tulsa's Integrated Data System for Expanded Learning. And this is actually, it was a big effort. It was actually a citywide effort. We had a data team, a data design team with folks from the district, ourselves, and all over the city to identify the needs of all partners regarding the data system. We vetted developers. Ultimately, we chose CitySpan to build our system, which is what we use. And the best part about it is that the district, chose to be integrated with us. So they use PowerSchool as their data system, and we have PowerSchool, not everything in there, but we have quite a lot of the metrics that we want to focus on for our youth that are built directly into our system. So our partners can look at in-school attendance and look at that against attendance in programs. So we can see if our programs are successful in, pulling that lever for in-school attendance. We also have outcomes. That's a great question. Thank you, Joy. Yeah, we'll come to those questions at the end when, if we have time. And if not, I can certainly reach out to you. We have in-school attendance. We have also academic outcomes, so that we were able to look at that. And it really speaks to the power of building these relationships with the district that Debbie talked about, so that they weren't afraid to really lean in and understand our youth and let other folks come into the data conversation, which I know can be very, very sensitive. And they were very open with us. And of course, there are negotiations, but we've really been able to make a lot of strides with our data system. So we were very excited about that addition. And Debbie, if you want to speak to that and also to the community partner guide that you're working on, that would be great.
Absolutely. The out of school time standards, title, also the, like you said, the community partner guide, all of these, while the standards and title sits with the opportunity project, they manage it, they own it, but all of this has been done in partnership. So that's the one thing that I think has really been powerful for us, is that when a community partner approaches the opportunity project and that they would like to offer programming to young people in one of our schools, with confidence, the opportunity project can say, that's great. Here are the 20 steps that you have to do this. And they know those are the steps because we work those out together. And so that is one thing that is really helpful in having this relationship with an intermediary, is that we're slowly kind of building that, you know, the op is definitely a place that people can go to if they're looking for an entry point into our schools. And again, like the community partner guide, we're still, we're in the, every time I think we're in the final stages of developing it, something happens like COVID. And so now we have to go back and add things. So it is definitely, the community partner guide is, again, almost a step-by-step process for how you were able to work in our schools, but also there will be a section on, as a partner, you're required to work in title. And so then, and that's kind of to answer the question before about confidentiality, we have painstakingly gone through the data sharing agreement process. And so that is where we are setting those expectations up front with partners. And it's not meant to be a barrier. It is actually meant to reduce barriers. So if we have a partner that approaches either the op or the district, and they think they are ready to go, hit the ground running to offer programming. And as we're working with them, we find that there might be a few gaps. It doesn't mean they can't provide programming. That just means then the op knows where to step in and help provide that professional development and coaching that they may need, and possibly where we need to step in as a district also. And so that's, I think that is the, my goal for this partnership is that we are reducing barriers for partners to be able to be in our schools so that we can increase the access to quality programming. And I would definitely say over the last 2.5 years, we have done that. Before the op came, we didn't have, please correct me if I'm wrong, didn't have 4 middle school campuses that were offering programs, and now we do. And so, and that speaks to the level of partnership that we have through working through data sharing agreements, our standards, and our community partner guide.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I'll speak just a little bit to the data sharing, but definitely our contact information is going to be on the last slide, and feel free to reach out and we can give you a little bit more information. The data sharing, not only do we have data sharing agreements with all of our partners, we go through confidentiality and we have them sign forms. I guess the biggest hurdle that we kind of was removed is the fact that our district is very data forward, and so is our city. So we have a lot of forward thinking data people who are typically making decisions based on data in multiple kind of sectors in our city. So we were able, like, that conversation really didn't have to happen to convince the district that this was important, because they believe it as well. So we'll move Ian on to the next slide, which I just wanted to talk for just a quick minute before I turn it over to Fausto about what we have done for COVID response. So as Debbie said, for everybody on this call, it just kind of came in with no warning. For us in particular, it happened right before spring break. So our kids did not go back to school after their spring break. And the district spent about a couple weeks of kind of meetings and trying to figure out what their plan was going forward before they launched their distance learning. So there were 2 weeks in there when really nothing was happening with our kids. And once again, because of the data system and we have access to reach them, and because of our partnership with TPS, we were able to kind of step in, and we made calls to all of our families. We checked in on them, helped them with their basic needs as far as like connecting them to meal sites, making sure they knew where they were, helping them figure out which was the closest meal site. We had Hunger Free Oklahoma, which is a food security community organization here, or statewide organization, had a lot of additional things that we made sure to send mass texts out to our youth and our families about those things as they happen. When we'd hear about food drives and things like that, we would let our families know. We also helped with hotspots and internet access, and then also helping the families kind of navigate the distance learning once that started with their schools. So helping them make sure they got their Chromebooks and they understand how to get on Zoom and those kinds of things. Another thing that I want to highlight that we were able to do, as I think Hasi mentioned, we do have quite a few 21st century learning partners in our network. And for them, at least in our state, they didn't have a lot of guidance on what they could use their funds for in the beginning of COVID, because it wasn't an option. So we knew that professional development was something that they could continue to pay their staff for, and we were able to quickly pivot. Paige Kennedy, who is in charge of our learning management system, our online LMS, quickly pivoted and launched it well ahead of the original plan so that we could offer quite a lot of PD for our partners. And she still weekly sends out a calendar with a lot of the webinars that you guys are on now, that you all are participating in, so that our partners can continue to learn and grow during this time. Quickly, we did a super summer pilot. We had, it was originally going to be in person. We pivoted that to virtual with 2 elementary schools. We also continued out the year as much as we could with some virtual clubs that were already happening in the school when kids left, so that they could still feel that connection to us. And then, and I did skip one. I'll talk a little bit, then I'll go back up to the SEL kits and videos. So the SEL kits were things that we put together in bags, and we partnered with the district. And thank you, Ian, for sharing that. I'll speak to this in a minute. We partnered with the district and capitalized on their meal distribution sites by passing out what we called SEL kits. So these had STEM kits and journals and just all kinds of things for kids to do during this time. A COVID-19 time capsule, thinking through how they're feeling. We also partnered with Bike Club, which is one of our program providers. And they created this site that you see now called Stay Active OK. And in it, they had community partners from all over the city. You can see art, biking, cooking, emotions. And we pitched in and did quite a lot of videos on managing your emotions, or things that kids could do just to kind of understand their emotions at this time. I mean, I know that we all are reading articles left and right about our own emotions. And I'm sure everybody on this call has, suffered in some way or another with this change. It is definitely, a trauma that we're all experiencing. And we really leaned in to help our kids and our families kind of work through that. So yeah, and you can click off of that. I also want to give a quick shout out. I didn't have it in there, but a quick shout out to Hasi. She did an amazing job of curating a ton of resources, probably the same resources that you all have seen come into your inbox since COVID started. And she has a great resource page on our website where she kind of curated the best ones, separated them out, have all of them in Spanish as well. We directed families there and also for our partners. And then the last thing that I want to highlight that we worked on is called After Op at Home. So as Hasi mentioned, After Op is our middle school campus of activities. And After Op at Home is through a text learning platform that we were able to, Ian, I think it's the other, if you want to click on it, the other one. Yep, that's it. So these are actually classes. This is what our classroom looks like. And it's through a company called Arist. And each of these are like little clubs or courses. Stop motion animation, yoga, getting to know you is kind of like an interviewing and recording for people who maybe think about journalism or things like that. We have some writing workshops on there, things like that. So basically kids can opt into this for free, enroll, and then they will receive a text each day with the information, with the lesson, and they can communicate back, they can write back in the text, so we can get data on what they're learning and things like that. And we ask partners to lean in and offer to provide some clubs as well through this platform. The name of the program is called Arist. It's ARIST. And you all are welcome to go to that web address, and they're all free. Feel free to sign up for one of them just to see kind of what it looks like for them coming. We are going to keep this throughout the year as well. And another place of connection is that the district also has this on their website. So this is now open for all middle schoolers, even if we don't have an After Op in your school.
Amy, can I just real quickly, just I know we have to transition, but I think one thing that is really key in the systems building between any intermediary and their district, and I know that's been very critical for us, is the just constant communication, the joint communication. Like for instance, tomorrow we have a meeting scheduled with our local partners that will be facilitated by the OP and the district to share our new calendar for the school year that was voted on by the school board last night. And so we can help community partners in that. The other piece to our strong partnership is also that we communicate regularly with our State Department of Education, our 21st Century program director, and that was, they have been very helpful in helping us to support our 21st Century grantees in making sure that the crazy ideas that we come up with, that our 21st Century partners, that they can do those things, and they were very critical in helping to help guide, as Amy said, you know, with all the changes when COVID hit and how we were all not sure how our funding worked in that situation. That team was very critical in helping our partners to make sure that they could continue with professional development and how they were supporting students. And so I'm saying that the communication is just critical, and joint communication.
Yes, and yes, and so of course, I mean, because of the relationships we've built, thanks to kind of the district leaning into what we're doing and us working really closely with them on, you know, furthering their goals as a district. You know, as reentry opens, we're in conversations with the district on that. And even, I can even speak to individual schools, you know, have since turned to us for help with thinking through experiential opportunities, even within the school day. So it really is a true partnership, a thought partner, as well as, you know, a logistical partner. So thank you. And I will turn it over to Fausto.
Thanks so much, Amy.
Thank you.
Yeah, so here at this point, I just really wanted to, again, next slide, please, really just underpin the fact that, you know, AIR and within our capacity of Beyond the Bell really had this opportunity to kind of really just witness and help apply some of our toolkit and tools to really just help the alignment and really provide the contextual, the consistency across all the partners in their conceptualization of implementing their work. And then just really thinking through the application, like I said, of some of the tools to what they were, what we leveraged in our time together. But fundamentally, again, always underpinning this commitment to quality, again, always exploring and always putting ourselves in a place. So I'm going to go ahead and ask everybody in the chat box, because I always like to do this when we're in person and we're just going to take it to the virtual world, is how many of you would say that you you implement, support, or around a quality program. Go ahead and put it in the chat because our annotate is not available for this. So go ahead and just tell me, say yes, no, of course I do. What do you do? Okay, Jackie, thank you for that. Yes. All right, yes. Amazing. No, sir. Okay, great. Again, thanks for the honesty. Sometimes that ebb and flow. And I'm gonna leverage the ebb and flow because I like the yeses, but again, it's a moving piece, right? So I'm gonna ask everybody also a follow-up. So for all my yeses and for my sometimes, how do you know? Go ahead and just populate that into how do you know you're running these quality programs? Like what does it look like? And again, this is going to be an opportunity for us to just share our common and collective understanding of this construct because we know quality looks different. I'm going to open up the chat box. Perfect. Go ahead and just start letting that go. And I'm going to ask Ian to go to the next slide. Perfect. Yeah, keep it coming. Keep it coming. And again, this is all about continuous improvement. Again, a term that's thrown around a lot. We frame the toolkit and our support around a cycle of continuous improvement. And so again, all the partners through the work, through the op, again, underpinning already the youth development, positive youth development approach that they were working as a Pacelli site, as already, again, working through some of the constructs using the youth program quality assessment and those supporting tools from our friends at the Weikart Center for Youth Program Quality. We, again, always look to say, okay, what are the tools that we can give you that support their already robust model to really push this along, right? And keep us turning across this cycle of developing our offerings, implementing them, and staying fluid in our evaluation. How are we nimble? Amy said pivoting. We have to be with like out of school time and our world of applying these strategies to our populations about being nimble and using evaluation as a reflection, ongoing practice towards improvement, right? So next slide, please. Keep them coming. These are great, flexible. Thank you for that. Yep. Pre-post survey, data. Okay, and data coming from all of these other inputs. Again, a lot of really great, we had used our opportunity to work with the partners to explore ongoing and emerging research bases. So we really pushed ourselves into the science of learning and development. Again, promoting good community youth development, good community psych, all the different constructs around implementation, science, all of the learning that we've had from the forum and from our partners around what good system building could and should look like. But we know, again, it's a moving goal at times. So really, again, trying to think through all the assets that we have in the world of our implementation, obviously focusing on our young people and how we, as an aligned system, provide better opportunities for positive development. And again, the commitment as I came into Tulsa was there. So it wasn't an issue. I was just told, Amy, that was not a situation of having to convince the partners. This was about how are we going to do this work? Because Tulsa already had, as they already alluded to, a really great alignment that was happening. And so kudos to the op for putting in all that work because it just doesn't happen. And so next slide, please. We really then focused our work around, again, community implementation of again, positive psychology in the community constructs, and really, again, emphasizing that we as programs have to think of this as in implementation as a fluid back and forth around our young people and how they come already as assets to our programs and how we leverage those assets, but still not discounting that we have to be at the pulse of what is going on in with our young people. Obviously, specifically now, even more importantly around this COVID shift. So again, always about being nimble. And I think one of the best things that Amy and Debbie and Hasi have already talked about is that nimbleness has already it didn't stop in February. It didn't stop when everything stopped. It keeps going because that's the mindset that we have to have. And then again, what do we have to do to really drill down to differentiate that all of our young people, the places that they're developing across their settings, when they were in school, and then now that they are on a screen and dealing with all those different, what are the constraints? And I think, again, Amy really and the op took the opportunity to always really take those contextual factors to the different areas of Tulsa, to the different demographics of the programs and the partners we're intending to work with. And then we grappled together through various different pieces around what does participation look like? What are our goals? And then really living in that program quality. Because as we always talk about, even prior to COVID, you can try to understand, work around the characteristics of what your young people bring to the table, but you can't really ultimately control those. You really can't control a lot of the community context. You can impact them. You can work hard and claw away at getting some of those strategies in place. But again, at some point, they're just structural. You can always think through the dosage, the breadth, the duration of how our young people come. But if they're not there, they don't reap the benefits. But what we can control is quality. And that gives us both, again, agency in our work and promotes us to really be actionable as we move towards these positive youth outcomes that we know also don't just magically appear or happen. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we really spent a lot of time with groups is always trying to, thinking with the end in mind, right? Turning that continuous improvement wheel to really live in, like, what are we aiming for? What are these elusive skills and competencies and amazing attributes and academic measures that we want to gain out of our young people? What is it? And so I'm going to ready again ask everybody, because I've been talking for a second. The chat box is open. I want to know, what are these outcomes that you guys are shooting for through all these programs? All those folks who said, I'm a quality program. Okay, what are those quality constructs that you're shooting for everybody? So go ahead and just put those into the chat box, because it's always really good to hit a checkbox to run, really check ourselves in our reflection, in our evaluation, to think, what are these outcomes that we're shooting for? And if I can articulate them, then my partner, Amy, can also articulate them and help me and support getting us to that place. And we did a great job, I think, together in tandem to really tease out these contextual factors for the programs, and then the op would swoop in. And I was just so amazed of all the resources and things that they were able to plug right into the partners, which again makes it actionable, right? There's no lag, because data has lag, but this keeps everybody on the hook, as I saw it. Again, I'm a little biased, but the idea is it was a great time. And I have one more slide before I see you, Amy. And I know we're getting close on time. I have one more slide that I want to just polish it over, polish this piece here. Ian, next slide. Perfect. So what does this support look like? Again, we collaborated intently and intentionally with the op about the partners, who's coming to the table. We threw around different opportunities of grouping strategies with the different partners, emerged that strategy in our own application of continuous improvement to say, hey, some of those groupings may not be working. We don't know what's going on, but everyone in a goal of consistency of information got the same dosage, right? We reviewed the online tools and modules of Beyond the Bell. Again, if anybody is interested, you could always contact me about Beyond the Bell. There are free resources that we'll share post connected to this webinar. But at the end of the day, there were capacity building sessions with the partners, some one-on-one coaching that emerged, both even virtual, because Amy, I think we were visionary. We were doing the virtual stuff even because it was just, hey, we got to make it happen, right? We're out of school time. We make things happen. We did a blended model at times, depending on what we knew, because again, we're trying to be responsive to everybody. And in the middle of programming, at times it was hard to just get somebody to step away and spend 2 hours with me in Tulsa. So we pivoted and we did what we needed to do. So at the back end of the year, we are really starting to drill down in individual supports, the different application of these 96 tools, which at times is just an issue of getting grounded in them. And then even starting applying to the kind of formative process of building capacity through site visits, incorporating observations, and really just choosing the tools to support the structures that the op already had going that really was, as we say, could help people just kind of feel some traction around the work that they're planning and intentionally working together collaboratively. And it was just a great time to just see what everyone was doing on the ground. And it was, again, super always really interested in kind of pushing it out more at an individual level. But I know that we have time of the essence, and I'm going to go ahead and transition over to the next slide to give us a second to kind of process. That was a lot of information. We're going to process. We're going to implement our own reflection, evaluative, crystallize what Hasi introduced earlier as one of the 3 signature practices that Castle has promoted to say, how do we systematize good collaboration and good modeling of social and emotional learning, both at the adult and at the youth level. Take it away, Hasi.
Yes, absolutely. So we know that learning is connected to behavior changes. And so like Fausto said, an opportunity for reflection really helps us leave on a positive note and try to process and digest all the information that we shared today. I know some of you might have questions, but we really want to create some momentum towards taking actions. So we're going to ask you to reflect on where you were, what your starting point was at the start of this webinar, and what you gained. Hopefully, you got at least one main takeaway that might be helpful in your role and in your setting, and we would love to hear from some of you. If you could share it in the chat, maybe something specific that you can implement, or maybe something that you're very interested in learning more, and really what the implications are for your system. Depending on where you are in this journey, maybe you need to recruit and engage stakeholders. Maybe you need to define and coordinate leadership, or enhance and align standards. Maybe it's something around data. Maybe it's something around continuous quality improvement or ensuring accountability. We would love to hear your key takeaways. And as you reflect, we can share the next slide. I know some of you had very specific questions. Here is all of our contact information. Feel free to screenshot it and shoot any of us an email if you have any specific questions that you need to send our way. We would love to share any resources. And as we said in the beginning, this is being recorded, and we will share all of that information next week. But thank you all for joining us.
Thank you very much to Amy, Hasi, Fausto, and Debbie. It was a great presentation. We really appreciate it. And hopefully in some point in 2021 or 2022, we'll be able to get together in person. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.